It all started one foggy evening in the Pacific Northwest. I was scrolling through Reddit, mindlessly checking out the latest conspiracy theories, when I stumbled across a post that sent chills down my spine. The title read, "Bigfoot is real, and he's a military experiment." I dismissed it at first, thinking it was just another wild tale spun by internet trolls. But as I read on, my skepticism turned to horror. The post detailed sightings of a creature in the forest that behaved unlike any animal. Witnesses described a towering figure, massive and covered in fur. But the more they observed, the more they realized something was off. The movements were too precise, too calculated. Some claimed to have heard mechanical whirring sounds, like gears grinding, echoing through the trees. At first, I laughed it off. Bigfoot had long been the subject of folklore and local legend, and the idea of him being a robot seemed absurd. But the comments section was flooded with stories. Strange encounters, odd noises at night, and sightings that seemed eerily coordinated. It didn't take long for me to get sucked into the rabbit hole. As I continued to read, I discovered that the U.S. military had allegedly been conducting secret experiments in the area for years, developing advanced robotics capable of navigating dense forests undetected. The theory proposed that Bigfoot was one of these experiments, designed for surveillance, or perhaps even to control wildlife populations. What if the creature people had been searching for was not a mythical beast, but a sophisticated machine? I felt a sense of dread wash over me. I was supposed to go camping with friends in the same area where these sightings had occurred. We were looking forward to a weekend of hiking, bonfires, and good company. But now, I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked in those woods. The next day, I shared the post with my friends, hoping to get a laugh out of it. Instead, they looked genuinely concerned. Mike, the most skeptical of the group, spoke up. "What if there's some truth to it? You know the military has been experimenting with drones and robotics for years. What if they've taken it to the next level?" "Come on," I said, trying to lighten the mood. "Bigfoot is just a story. Besides, if there really was a robot monster out there, we'd know about it by now." But as the weekend approached, I couldn't shake the unsettling thoughts. Our group decided to proceed with our plans, vowing to stick together and keep an eye out for anything strange. The night we arrived at the campsite, the air was thick with anticipation. We set up our tents, lit a fire, and shared stories to ward off any fears. But the deeper we got into the night, the more the stories shifted. People began recalling strange sounds they had heard in the woods, low growls, rustling leaves, and an unsettling sense of being watched. "Maybe we should do a night hike," Jess suggested, trying to break the tension. "You know, see if we can catch a glimpse of the legendary Bigfoot." I hesitated, but my friends were eager. Soon enough, we found ourselves walking through the moonlit forest, flashlights cutting through the darkness. The deeper we went, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, and the only sounds were our footsteps and the occasional rustle of leaves. As we moved further away from the campsite, I heard something, a low hum, almost like machinery. I glanced at Mike, who looked equally uneasy. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. He nodded, his eyes wide. "We should turn back." But Jess, ever the adventurer, pressed on. "It's probably just the wind or something. Let's keep going." We continued, but the hum grew louder, more mechanical. I felt a knot tightening in my stomach. Then suddenly, we heard a loud crash nearby, branches snapping and leaves rustling violently. My heart raced as we froze, instinctively gripping our flashlights tighter. "Okay, that's it. We need to go back now," I said, fear creeping into my voice. Just then, we caught a glimpse of something massive moving through the trees. a dark figure towering above us, its shape obscured by the shadows. I felt paralyzed with fear. My mind raced with the stories I'd read. Could this be it? Could Bigfoot be real? And was he a robot? Before I could process what was happening, Jess let out a scream. "Run!" she shouted, turning on her heel and sprinting back the way we came. The rest of us followed, adrenaline pumping through our veins. We didn't stop until we reached the campsite, gasping for breath. The fire flickered in the darkness, providing a small sense of security, but our laughter and bravado had evaporated, replaced by an anxious silence. We quickly gathered around the fire, each of us shooting nervous glances into the dark woods. "What was that?" Mike asked, his voice shaky. "I don't know," I replied, trying to regain my composure. "But I think we should stay alert tonight. There might be something out there." As the night wore on, we heard it again, the hum. This time it seemed to be circling our campsite, a ghostly reminder that we weren't alone. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, studied like lab rats. I pulled out my phone, hoping to catch some footage. The screen illuminated the area around us, but it only highlighted the oppressive darkness beyond the reach of the firelight. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread wash over me. What if Bigfoot was indeed a robot, and we had stumbled into a military experiment gone awry? The thought haunted me as I lay in my tent that night, unable to sleep. The hum continued, growing more intense, accompanied by strange sounds echoing through the woods. I closed my eyes, praying for morning to come. Little did I know, the nightmare was just beginning. Morning light filtered through the trees, casting a warm glow over the campsite. As I crawled out of my tent, I found my friends gathered around the fire, their faces drawn and weary. The echoes of the previous night still hung heavily in the air, the dread we had felt refusing to dissipate with the dawn. "Did anyone else hear that humming all night?" Mike asked, looking at each of us as if searching for confirmation of his sanity. "Yeah, I couldn't sleep at all," Jess replied, running a hand through her hair. "What do you think it was?" "I don't know," I said, trying to shake off the lingering fear. "But I think we should get out of here. It's not worth the risk." Reluctantly, the group agreed. We packed our things and prepared to leave, but as we started to hike back to the car, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being followed. Every rustle of leaves or snapping of twigs sent a jolt of panic through me. The woods felt alive, and I was hyper-aware of my surroundings. As we walked, we began discussing what we had seen, or thought we had seen, last night. Jess was convinced it had just been a bear, but Mike and I exchanged glances, both of us too shaken to believe that explanation. "Do you think it's possible the military is actually testing something out here?" I asked, half joking but mostly serious. "Maybe," Mike said, frowning. "I mean, if they've been developing robotics for surveillance, who's to say they wouldn't test it in a remote area? But Bigfoot? That seems like a stretch." As we reached a clearing, the uneasy feeling intensified. In the center stood a strange structure, a series of metal poles and wires that looked completely out of place in the natural setting. "What the hell is that?" Jess whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but we should check it out," Mike suggested, excitement mingling with his fear. "No way!" Jess shot back. "We should get out of here." "Come on, it could be important," Mike insisted. "What if it's part of the experiments?" Despite my better judgment, curiosity got the best of us. We cautiously approached the structure, which hummed with a low, mechanical vibration. The closer we got, the more I felt a sense of foreboding wash over me. Something about this place felt wrong, like we were intruding on a secret that was never meant to be discovered. As we examined the structure, I noticed symbols and markings etched into the metal. but I couldn't make sense of them. Jess scanned the area nervously, her eyes darting to the tree line. I don't like this. We should really go. But before we could turn back, we heard it, a loud crack, followed by the unmistakable sound of branches snapping. We all froze, hearts racing. The humming grew louder, reverberating in my chest. Suddenly, a figure burst from the trees. A massive creature, its fur matted and wild, but there was something distinctly off about it. As it stepped into the clearing, I felt a wave of terror wash over me. This wasn't the Bigfoot of legend. This was something far more menacing. "Run!" I screamed, and we took off in the opposite direction, adrenaline propelling us forward. The creature pursued us, its movements unnaturally quick for something so large. I could hear the mechanical whirring, confirming our worst fears. It was a robot, designed to mimic the very thing we feared. Panic surged through me as I glanced back, seeing its glowing eyes focused on us, relentless and unwavering. The forest blurred around me as I pushed my legs to run faster. We burst out of the trees, finding ourselves on a narrow path that led to our car parked at the edge of the woods. I fumbled for my keys as we reached the vehicle, my hands trembling. The creature was gaining on us, its footsteps thudding ominously against the ground. "Get in! Get in!" I shouted, my voice cracking with fear. We scrambled into the car, and I quickly started the engine, heart racing as the sound of the creature's footsteps grew louder. As I peeled out of the clearing, I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw it standing at the edge of the woods, towering and still. It seemed to be analyzing us, its mechanical eyes glowing brighter, as if processing our escape. I felt a chill run down my spine. We had narrowly escaped, but the terror was far from over. We drove in silence for a while, each of us lost in our thoughts. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on us. What the hell was that thing? Jess finally broke the silence, her voice shaky. "I don't know," I admitted, gripping the steering wheel. "But it's not just a legend. They're using Bigfoot as a cover for something far more sinister." "Are we going to report this?" Mike asked, his brow furrowed in concern. "Someone needs to know." "And who would we even tell?" Jess snapped. "The military? They'd probably deny it or worse." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "We need evidence. If we can capture proof of what we saw, then maybe people will listen." The more I thought about it, the more determined I became. We had stumbled upon something monumental, something that could expose the truth behind the myth. As we drove away from the forest, I made a silent vow to return, armed with a camera and whatever else I could gather. We had to know what was happening in those woods. The rest of the day was a blur. We drove home in a daze, barely speaking, still processing the terror we had experienced. But deep down, I felt a sense of purpose grow within me. I wouldn't let this mystery go unsolved. That night, I hardly slept. I pored over everything I could find about Bigfoot and military experiments, scouring forums and dark corners of the internet. The more I read, the more the pieces fell into place. I discovered rumors of a military project called Project Cryptid, aimed at developing advanced surveillance technology disguised as mythical creatures. Could it be true? Were we the unwitting witnesses to something far beyond our understanding? As I prepared to return to the woods, I felt a mixture of dread and excitement. I knew I had to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. Little did I know that what awaited me in the depths of the forest would shatter everything I thought I knew. The following weekend, I found myself back at the edge of the forest, the memories of the previous encounter still fresh in my mind. Armed with a camera, a flashlight, and an overwhelming sense of determination, I stepped into the woods, each crunch of leaves beneath my feet echoing the anxiety in my chest. I had convinced Mike and Jess to join me again, but this time they seemed more wary than excited. "Are you sure about this?" Jess asked, glancing nervously into the shadows. "What if that thing comes back?" "We'll be ready this time," I reassured her, though I felt the same fear lurking in my own gut. "We just need to get evidence. If we can show the world what's really happening here, we can expose the truth." As we ventured deeper into the woods, the atmosphere felt different, thicker, more oppressive. The familiar sounds of nature were muted, replaced by an unsettling silence that seemed to amplify our footsteps. I checked my camera, ensuring it was set to capture both video and sound. We reached the clearing where we had seen the metallic structure the week before. To our shock, it was still there, standing ominously against the backdrop of towering trees. It looked even more foreboding in the daylight, the metal glinting strangely under the sun. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Let's check it out again," I said, my voice steady despite the tension in the air. Mike and Jess exchanged hesitant glances, but followed me nonetheless. As we approached, the humming returned, a low, unsettling sound that resonated within my chest. I aimed my camera at the structure, recording every detail. "This has to be it," I murmured, feeling the weight of the moment. Suddenly, we heard a rustling from the tree line, and my heart skipped a beat. The sound was unmistakable. It was moving closer. I turned the camera towards the noise, hoping to capture whatever was lurking just beyond the branches. And then it appeared. The creature emerged from the shadows, towering above us, its robotic form cloaked in a layer of faux fur. It was even more terrifying in the daylight, its glowing eyes piercing through the underbrush. The hum grew louder, drowning out our panicked breaths. "Run!" Mike shouted, but before we could move, the creature lunged forward, its massive limbs moving with alarming speed. We dashed back toward the trees, adrenaline coursing through our veins. I kept the camera rolling, instinctively documenting our flight, the raw fear palpable in every shaky frame. I could hear the mechanical whirring behind us, chasing us down like prey. "Where do we go?" Jess screamed, her voice breaking with terror. "Follow me," I shouted, veering off the path and into the dense undergrowth, hoping to lose the creature among the trees. We pushed through branches and underbrush, desperately trying to escape the relentless pursuit. The ground was uneven, and I stumbled, falling to the forest floor. I quickly rolled over, aiming my camera at the tree line, heart racing as I watched for the creature. It was close, too close. I could see it moving with unnerving precision, its eyes glowing brighter, scanning the area. "Get up!" Mike yelled, pulling me to my feet. "We can't stop." We sprinted further into the woods, the sounds of our breaths mingling with the whirring and clicking of the mechanical beast behind us. Just when I thought we had lost it, I heard a deafening crash, a tree splintering as the creature barreled through the underbrush, its strength far beyond that of any natural predator. "Over here!" I shouted, spotting a narrow ravine to our right. We ducked down into it, hoping the dense foliage would hide us. We crouched low, hearts pounding as we listened to the chaos above. The creature paused, its mechanical sounds blending into the eerie silence of the woods. I couldn't believe we had managed to evade it, but I knew it was only a matter of time before it found us again. I glanced at Mike and Jess, their faces pale and fear-stricken. "Do you think it can track us?" Jess whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, glancing at the camera still clutched in my hand. "But if it can, we need to get out of here. We need to warn people." We waited in the ravine, listening for any signs of the creature, until we were certain it had moved on. Slowly, we crawled back up to the surface, cautiously peering around. The forest was still, but I felt an unsettling energy pulsing through the air. "Let's head back to the car," Mike said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "We can figure this out once we're safe." We retraced our steps, moving as quietly as possible. Every snap of a twig felt like a gunshot in the tense silence. I kept my camera ready, half expecting the creature to leap out at any moment. Just as we reached the path, the humming returned, louder this time, more menacing. "It's back!" I gasped, and we turned to see the creature standing at the edge of the clearing, its eyes locked onto us. There was no time to think. We ran, sprinting down the path toward our car. I could hear the mechanical beast gaining on us, its footsteps pounding against the earth. The clearing loomed ahead, our escape in sight. We burst out onto the gravel road, frantically looking for the car. I spotted it just ahead, the familiar silhouette bringing a surge of hope. I fumbled with my keys, hands shaking as I tried to unlock the doors. "Go! Go!" Jess screamed, glancing back in horror. Finally, the doors clicked open and we jumped inside, slamming them shut just as the creature burst into the clearing. I started the engine, my heart racing as the roar of the car filled the air. The creature paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as it assessed us. "Drive!" Mike shouted, and I floored the gas pedal, the tires screeching against the gravel as we sped away. As we left the woods behind, I glanced in the rearview mirror. my heart pounding. The creature stood at the edge of the trees, its silhouette framed against the fading sunlight, an imposing figure watching us disappear into the distance. We drove in silence, the reality of what we had witnessed settling heavily upon us. I could hardly process it. The implications were staggering. Bigfoot wasn't just a myth. He was a machine, a military experiment lurking in the woods, and we had stumbled right into its territory. When we finally reached civilization, the streets filled with the noise of life, I felt a strange mix of relief and urgency. "We need to get this footage out there," I said, looking at my friends. "People need to know what's happening in those woods." "Are you sure that's a good idea?" Jess asked, her brow furrowed. "What if they come after us?" "I don't care," I replied, determination coursing through me. "We can't let this go. We need to expose what we found." As we made our way to my apartment, I felt the weight of our experiences pressing down on me. The woods had been a hunting ground, a place where nature and technology intertwined in a way that defied understanding. We had seen something incredible, something terrifying, and it was our responsibility to share it. That night, I uploaded the footage, my hands trembling as I shared it with the world. I titled the video, "Bigfoot, the Military Experiment," and watched as it quickly gained traction. The comments flooded in, skeptics, believers, and conspiracy theorists all reacting to the shocking footage. But deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. The truth was out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for someone to uncover it, and I was determined to be that someone, no matter what it took. As I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had only scratched the surface of a far greater mystery, and whatever lurked in the depths of those woods was not finished with us yet.